Hey, so I know I'm supposed to be coming up with an intro right now, but I just have to ask something real quick. Am I the only hardcore Crash fan on Earth who had no idea until recently that Crash spoke in the Japanese version of Crash 1? There's also some other weird stuff I didn't know about, like how Aku Aku talks to you in almost every level when you pick up a mask, that some of the bosses have different music and take more hits, and that they switch the positions of Sunset Vista and Slippery Climb for absolutely no reason. It kind of feels like playing an alternate reality version of the game that's like 1% different from the one that we're used to. So anyway, today is September 9th, 2021. To most people, that date probably doesn't mean much, but to seafloor dwellers like me, it means that Crash Bandicoot has officially existed for 25 years. At this point, he's spun his way through more console generations than almost any other non-Nintendo series has, across nearly 24 games, and almost half of those games are good. When talking about the not-so-good ones, I find that Crash 1 comes up quite a lot. Hell, I even said it sucks ass in the first episode of this show. And at the time that slapping a PS1 disc in your machine was the only way to play it, I think that opinion was at least a little justified. However, the more I go back to Crash 1, the more I start to think that it may actually be kind of underrated. Now don't twist my words, I'm never in a million years going to say that this is secretly the best in the trilogy, but it does keep slipping its way into my mind and making me think that, honestly, it might be my personal favorite regardless. I also want to be clear that while some stuff I say will apply to both versions of the game, most of my love comes from the better one that's packaged with the Sane trilogy. I do still like the original, but let's all be honest here, its mechanics kind of make it the any % speedrun to hemorrhoids. So now sit back, grab some popcorn, and let me tell you why I think this game with less levels, less movement options, less of a story, less memorable music, and less memorable characters is actually the best one. If I had to pick one single thing that stands out to me most about Crash 1, it's 100% the environments that Crash bounces his way through. And I mean this in concept, in how they look, and in the order that they're in. I vastly prefer watching Crash galumph his way through a beautiful jungle to seeing him slide around uncontrollably in an icy cave, I'll be honest. And while the remake obviously looks superior, you gotta have some serious respect for the PS1 version. It's still a little mind-blowing that they pulled this off in 1996. Reminder, that's the year that Mario looked like this. Going back to the order though, something I've never been a massive fan of in 2 and 3 is that because they dropped the world map for the whole portal aspect, there's very rarely a connection of any kind between the warp room and the level you go to. Warp room 1, warp room 4, doesn't matter, you're going to a snow level. Oh, this warp room is themed after the snow level, so I'm surely gonna end up in the f***ing sewers. I guess life is just madness, whatever. The plot of Crash 1 is that you escape from Cortex Castle, but in the process fall into the ocean, wash up on a beach of an entirely different island, and have to make your way back to save your girlfriend. But they don't even really have to tell you that that's what Crash is doing, because it comes across just fine while you play. For the first 9 or so levels, Crash is just jaunting through nature, visiting tribal villages and killing all the natives. He doesn't give a f***. But once you beat up the straitjacket kangaroo on top of the waterfall, there's a shift. Oh, just like in real life. All of a sudden, you're spending time in abandoned cities of the past, sneaking around spider and snake-infested temples, running and jumping across perilous bridges that take you to new places. Then, once you take down the juicing koala in the mines, it shifts again. Now you're inside Cortex's factories and warehouses, putting a stop to each of his operations one by one, and once you take out the lackey in charge of that, now it's time to start the endless ascent up the castle until you've sufficiently laid waste to it and are ready to fight Cortex himself. It's maybe the only game in the entire series that really feels like you're making progress with each and every level. I think Crash 4 also does a decent job at this, but each world being a trip to another dimension with only about 4 or 5 levels each means that cohesion only lasts for about 4 or 5 levels at a time. But get back on topic, Wade, you're supposed to be making out with Crash 1! I've previously complained about the level design in the first game being a little meandering and slow, but the more I think about it, the more I think that combined with Crash's more limited movement, 2 wrongs may somehow make a right. If you're incentivizing your player to be sliding and spinning all over the place, then yeah, I'd say putting slow arthritic obstacles in the way is a pretty bad idea. But then you consider that the boy's light jog is as fast as he's gonna be going here, and one big jump is as far as he's gonna be going, so they can set up obstacles that are a lot more about timing and perfect execution, which in turn makes them much harder, and that's far from a bad thing. In fact, I actually like that it gives it a unique identity among the trilogy. By far my favorite thing about the game though is going for 100% completion. It's maybe the only game in existence that I find it straight up difficult to not complete. Just running through from beginning to end is a fine experience, and I wouldn't really blame anyone for saying that that's enough difficulty for them, but I do honestly think that skipping out on grabbing all of the gems is missing a key part of the experience. In the Insane Trilogy, it's the perfect level of challenge, and even if challenge isn't necessarily what you're looking for, a ton of the extra areas that the color gems take you to are comparatively super interesting. If you've been sitting in a cold sweat wondering what clouds are like in Crash's universe, I got great news. Of course, even though this is a Crash 1 love fest, I don't think it would be reasonable to exclude mentioning my few problems with this task, and I've overall come up with 3. The first is the color gems themselves. I really don't like that they're almost entirely on the 3rd island. Meanwhile, you need them to get like 3 or 4 boxes on what feels like 50% or more of the early levels. I know they want me to have a reason to go back to old levels in order to extend playtime, but if I know the secret of how to complete this level on my first go, it's super satisfying if you just let me do that. Really, I know that this is just a product of the time. That bothers me nonetheless. Just like leprosy. Problem number 2 has gotta be the 100% reward. It just actually blows in a way I'll never comprehend. Beat the game normally, you end up fighting Cortex atop his blimp and burning the castle to the ground. Beat the game after what can feel like hours of painstaking work, you just find Tana and leave without a final boss battle. It's like the game doesn't even end, it just stops. I mean, I guess you do also get the where are they now section. I'll be honest, it's not that helpful in Japanese. But seriously, am I crazy for saying these feel like they were supposed to be flipped? Why the hell is my reward for all that pain Crash sparing Cortex? Maybe it's a statement. Maybe it's Naughty Dog trying to tell us that true victory is about letting go of grudges and making peace with those that have wronged you in the past. Or maybe it's just f***ing stupid. And of course, problem number 3 is the obvious one, the PS1 version. Again, if you play the Insane Trilogy, you should totally go for the 100%. It's completely worth it. But trying to complete the PS1 version is like trying to climb over a cactus. Yeah, you can do it, and when you get to the other side, you might feel pretty satisfied. But is it worth the pain? Is it worth the humiliation? For those who don't know, if you die even once in the PS1 game, you can't get that level's gem unless you leave and come back, which means every level has to be beaten in one shot, whether it's one of the 30-second long levels or one of the levels that just never seems to f***ing end. In addition to that, Crash's physics in this one are completely different from any other game, and the slip sliding and spin moving are going to ruin plenty of gem attempts. What I'm getting at here is, please, dear God, just play the Insane Trilogy. I do over-exaggerate how painful the old one is a little bit, but I still don't think I'd recommend it unless you're a nostalgic dumbass or a masochist. Oopsie, I'm both. Overall, Crash 1 is undoubtedly one of my favorite games of all time, and even if I didn't really enjoy it, I would always have to appreciate it for what it did for the game's industry, as well as for kicking off one of my favorite series. It's one I could sit down to complete for a few hours any day of the week, and while I'm still not 100% sure if it quite reaches the levels of love I have for 2 and 3, I think it does enough amazingly that it at least competes, and certainly does not deserve to be called bad. I've actually been taking lessons on how to be more like this game since I love it so much, and that's why, since you sat through the whole video, I thought the most satisfying ending would be